Hi everyone, it's Ben Hookway here, and welcome to Voices to Action podcast. I have with me in this episode Bret McCormick from SBJ. Bret, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is going to be really exciting. So, Bret is with SBJ and has some really interesting specialisms. So, Bret, do you want to kind of give us a quick overview of who SBJ are actually, for those who don't know, and kind of what your area of focus is?
Yeah, SBJ stands for Sports Business Journal. We're the trade publication for the North American sports industry and increasingly more of the world. Last week I wrote about Fulham's stadium project. So, as North American sports business kind of gets exported around the world, we're, increasingly interconnected with the rest of the world. And I think the rest of the world gets interested in how we're doing it as well. So yeah, we're online. We publish a print magazine, and I cover facilities and fan experience. So facilities would include real estate, mixed use development, stadiums, arenas, training facilities, all the physical real estate, and then fan experience would be anything in the live sports experience. That includes like concessions, food and beverage, technology. I've got a real banger coming up on park and ride systems. So getting people in and out, yeah, for sure, is a big deal. Security, will be a big issue in the U.S. With the World Cup and Olympics coming up. And then fan experience can also be digital too, though. So people on their couch can also are getting a fan experience these days with in their mobile device or smarter TVs or whatever. So yeah, that's the areas that I cover. And yeah, like you said, it's not like explicitly covered by B2C publications really. So it's kind of a niche thing for us, and has been interesting. I did not grow up thinking, oh, I would love to write about stadiums and arenas, but it's actually worked out. And all my travel is to stadiums and arenas, so it's pretty fun. I get to walk around and rack up 20,000 steps and tour venues.
So do you still enjoy it? Like, are you still do you have a local team you support?
Yeah, so I worked for 12 years in newspapers before joining Sports Business Journal, so that jaded me deeply, and wrecked most of my fandom, and it's slowly started to come back. So I'm a big fan of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. College sports being very big over here.
Yeah.
Their basketball team is a quite dominant program, and then I'm actually a fan of Newcastle United. I love soccer. I grew up playing it. I went to France when I was 12, the summer before the '98 World Cup, and watched the tournoi and saw Roberto Carlos hit that banana free kick, and on TV, not in person. But there was this like battering ram guy for England who I think he had like a bandage on his head and would just absolutely smash free kicks. And his name was Alan Shearer. And I was like, that guy is an American, and kind of a meatheady culture as, but like kind of relate to this guy. And then and I got to know Newcastle. Yeah,
Definitely a sort of UK legend.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that was a time when they were really good too, and I mean, I kept up with them through 2 relegations in the dark Mike Ashley years, and it's been enjoyable to see them doing well. I mean, as a journalist, I wouldn't say I was like overjoyed that by who bought them, but
I was gonna say maybe we come on to that later on. It's like with
maybe.
for those viewers who aren't aware, Newcastle United is a sort of iconic soccer club in the north of England, and was bought with Middle Eastern money maybe 4 years ago, 5 years.
Yeah, I think it was 21. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so let's get into stadiums, like which kind of always fascinate me. And maybe we stay on the sort of the European versus US. So
Mhm.
obviously I travel to the States a lot, and I lived there for quite a while. And one of the big um, differences that you see, depending on the European team, is that just the real estate that the different teams have. So typically in the States, it's like the stadium, there's a bunch of other stuff around the stadium, that they've got the space to kind of, do some exciting things with the fan experience. Whereas quite often, even like really big clubs, I'm thinking about like Liverpool, for instance,
Mhm.
Anfield in Liverpool, don't have that. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about fan experience and how different strategies are employed, depending by real estate and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we do have urban venues for sure, but they tend to not have like housing like right up on them. Like my favorite English stadium is Luton Town, where you like pass through the backyards. We don't have that intensive development around our stadiums, and a lot of our stadiums are suburban. And this is actually kind of a thing that's shifting right now. Is they tended to be surrounded by like just vast expanses of parking lots. So a good example, the Philadelphia Sports Complex, they actually have the basketball and hockey arena, baseball stadium, and the NFL stadium all in the same place. The NFL stadium will be one of the World Cup host stadiums. Um, there are 22,000 parking spaces around these stadiums. Yeah, and so that tailgating is something we do in a lot of places in the U.S. where you park your car, pop the tailgate of the back of the car down. I don't know what you call that in England, but the boot maybe or
Yes,
something.
exactly.
Yeah, and then you put food and you put a little grill out and you hang out for 4 hours before the game and a lot of times after the game to let the traffic go out. So that is a big cultural thing, in the US. Some venues with public transport, but not nearly as reliant on that as you would be in Europe and especially in England. We also don't have a huge away fan travel
Yeah.
culture. It's too spread out, and people are gonna, if they didn't know that, they're gonna find that out next summer.
Yeah.
And so if you have away fans, they tend to have moved to that city. And then there's certain teams that tend to have a lot of fans that aren't really connected to the team. So if I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, if our NFL team plays the Dallas Cowboys, there will be a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans there just because they're
Yeah.
kind of everywhere. Yankees, Lakers, very similar. So
So you mentioned the tailgating. So I read quite an interesting article, funny enough, in the Wall Street Journal about the mechanics of queuing or line management,
Mm.
as we'd say in the States. And it mentioned something quite interesting, which was the phenomena of tailgating for NFL line systems can create a problem because people are having a good time outside of the venue. And then an awful lot of people want to get into the stadium in a very short space of time. And so there's a lot of thought going into how can they get people spread, they flatten the curve
Mhm.
of people coming in. I was just wondering if you've come across that phenomenon, what people are kind of thinking about.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that's helped tackle that recently is frictionless screening, security screening technology. So I don't know if you guys have that much in the UK yet, but it's essentially you don't have to empty your pockets and walk through a magnetometer. You just keep walking, and the technology is not a metal detector. It's like actually scanning you, and it's
Mm.
looking for images. And so it's a bit smarter. That has sped things up, but then that just moves the crush of people onto ticketing. And so um, trying to use other sort of human engineering to like you said, flatten the curve. So, I mean, one way you can do that, for example, is to have like a pregame concert where people show up earlier. In some cases, they're creating discounted concessions if you go in early. And then one big shift that is happening with all these parking lots is the mixed use development trend, which you're gonna get. It's sort of happened with Man City. It's gonna happen with Birmingham. That with American owners, and it's creating a district around the stadium that, in a way, kind of sort of deters from tailgating a bit, but it gets people to come earlier and it has people stay later. So you also don't have the inverse problem, which is everybody exiting at once and creating massive traffic because a lot of people drive, which is a big issue right now.
I only live 20 minutes away from the Etihad in Manchester, and so
Right.
I can attest to the traffic problems right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely a thing, and part of it is, concessions in the US tend to be, food and beverage in the stadium tends to be kind of expensive, and so I think a lot of people are like, "Let me drink as many beers as I can drink in the parking lot,
Right.
before I go in." I brought all this food, like, we need to eat the food, and so that yeah, I would say tailgating does not dovetail with, smooth ingress and egress. So there's
Yeah.
probably some sort of kind of secret war against it to some degree, even though, people would never overtly, on the operations side say that they were against tailgating because it's so kind of like culturally ingrained in a lot of
Yeah,
places.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so does in terms of, strategies for, entertainment in the stadium, out with just the game, do the different sports have significantly different strategies? So for example, is a basketball game significantly different from a hockey game, or even a difference between college and pro football?
Yeah, certainly. For starters, the pace of the games would be different. I mean, baseball is going to be like way different from a basketball game. Soccer match, way less stop. It's not going to stop, so you're not
Mm.
going to have music like you would NBA. I think I find like NBA has to have the most kind of in-game entertainment options because there's the most stoppages. Even hockey, the stoppages are shorter, but then you have the 20-minute periods, which are long, and so that's kind of a different idea. And again, that creates, like you said, the crush on the concourse. Because everybody goes to get beers and go to the bathroom at the same time. Um, so that's something they sort of manage.
Mm.
But yeah, it's definitely. I think like the demographics for the sports could be like somewhat different. I think MLS in the US has a younger, more diverse fan base, definitely more Hispanic in a lot of cases. NWSL, WNBA are going to have more women fans and like more fans of more of their fans would not be as involved with other sports. Like they tend to have like more kind of families and first time sports fans. So yeah, no, it's definitely different. I think even like the style of music could be different. The amount that the public address announcer is speaking is a lot different. An NBA guy has more to say, or a baseball person has more to say than again soccer. You're gonna have a much different um like cadence and
Yeah, for sure.
opportunity to impact that. So
Yeah.
and then arenas also I would say have are being crammed with more technology, and so they're kind of with an enclosed space, you're doing more kind of like light show type stuff and
Yeah,
things
for
like
sure.
so it's a little more like veering towards its concert business, because they have some of that stuff already built in.
Yeah. So maybe we could talk a little bit then about the trends in building out new venues at the moment. So I mean, I know that some of our customers, LA Clippers, with the Intuit Dome is kind of national case study really in how to think about new venues. We've got the Tennessee Titans are doing stadium changes. So is there a lot of investment going into like brand new stadiums? And if that's true, like what's driving that?
Yeah, for sure. We're in a well, I'll tell you, my uh life and work is busier than ever. And so I was that as a reflection of what's going on. So in the US between I would say there's kind of I look at it in um maybe three subjects and two buckets, if that makes sense.
Okay.
The two buckets would be renovation versus new. And that question is coming up a lot because between 1995 and 2005, the US had a building boom. And so a lot of those venues are reaching the fork in the road age where it's like, do we renovate or build new?
Okay.
But either way, in almost every case, they're doing something. There's really not been many, if any, that are getting to that point and saying, no, we're good. We'll just keep going. And then the subjects or the parts of the industry, the professional level where there is significant investment in both. So, I mean, you're having the um, most expensive stadiums ever built, in part because a lot of cases they're involving mixed use development in the price tag. So, I mean, the Bears project was the one they were going to do downtown Chicago that isn't going to happen was like something like $4.7 billion. SoFi Stadium, including Hollywood Park, was $5.1 billion, most expensive stadium ever built. Um, any NFL stadium is going to be new stadium is going to be at least $2 billion. Arenas are regularly approaching $1.5 billion.
Mm.
Uh, we've got the most expensive college football stadium ever being built right now, which is $800 million, which is new build. But at the same time, you have Penn State University, is renovating a stadium that's like 104,000 seats, and that's 750. We also got the Jacksonville Jaguars, whose ownership owns Fulham, that is doing a $1.4 billion renovation. So they're not building a new stadium. It's $1.4 billion. And that's because a big chunk of that cost is they're actually putting a covering over a stadium that is currently open air. So they didn't put a roof on it because the sides are still open. So this will be what I call the second in the U.S. of the stadiums that are under a carport, essentially.
Yeah.
So if my stadium is under a covering with open sides, this will be the second that is covered, but the sides are open.
And is this normally driven by the ownership of the franchise? So quite often what we see, depending on the sport, the franchise does not own the stadium that is their home stadium, which can restrict them, and obviously, and kind of what they want to do. So is part of this trend that the franchise owner wants to own the stadium as well?
We have, I wouldn't say a huge mix, but we have ones that are privately owned, like Balmer, of course, owns, paid for Intuit Dome. Stan Kroenke paid for SoFi Stadium, but nearly all of them involve some public money and some massive amounts of public money. I mean, Tennessee Titans got a record, I think it was $1.1 billion in public funding, which is, you can debate whether that's a good investment or not. I mean, I think that's highly debatable, but so in most cases, the teams here are tenants, but with highly favorable, leases and agreements that give them essentially like total control of the venues. We tend to use like there will be like a stadium authority or an arena authority that is utilized to float the bonds for financing. And so they have like loose oversight, sometimes stricter, but the teams really, I would say, run the show. The biggest issue with these, with the fork in the road decision is, the cost and who pays for it, because the expectations of these venues has grown dramatically, like what they're supposed to do. I mean, you can't really build an NFL stadium anymore that you use like 10 times a year. I mean, we really should have never been doing that, but now you really cannot get public money and not use it more often. And the teams want to use it more often. Like they want to make more money. So I think everybody agrees on that, which has been good. But the cost of them is significant, and so they're trying to find new ways to fund them. And a lot of times that's the biggest hurdle is the lease extension and how they're gonna, who's gonna pay what and how they're gonna pay for it. Pretty common thing that's happening right now is called a TIF. It's like a tax increment financing district. So you put like a circle around the arena, and then you say everything, all the sales tax that was generated here will go back into the arena. And it's a way for the teams to say, we didn't use any general public money that should go to the homeless or education or whatever. So that's become like a really common thing.
And so in the design of the new stadiums, do you think that the fan experience is being thought about differently? There's kind of been new ideas put into the design. It'd be really interesting to kind of hear about that, because I think we say this quite a lot when we do this podcast and we're talking about sports, is that certainly one of the big contrasts, if you're European, you don't always appreciate that sport in the States is an entertainment business, and that's how it's treated. I'll maybe carve out college from that. I think that's quite true for college, which is much more of a loyalty thing. But if we could talk about sort of influences of fan experience on the new designs, that would be really interesting to hear about that.
In a lot of cases, the renovations are modernizing buildings that have good bones, but were built in a different era. So I mean, you need more Wi-Fi muscle. You need if you're going to have frictionless screening technology, you might need electrical outlets in a place that you never had electrical outlets before, or whatever. So if you're going to do facial recognition, entry, like you've got it into a dome, I mean, you need wired power in the ground, that's away from the venue. So, I mean, you could start with that. Concourses are being widened. One of the key things is like, in almost all of these is more space for fans. So new venues tend to be actually bigger than existing venues, but have lower capacity. So your square foot per fan is going up quite a bit.
Right.
We've got Dodger Stadium that was built in the 60s. That has like close to 60,000 capacity. The new A's Stadium in Las Vegas is only 32,000 seats. So the yield per seat, they're charging a higher ticket price per
Interesting.
seat, but there's less people there, and so you've got a more roomy, comfortable experience. So I would say fan comfort has become a big thing. I mean, even at the college level, for more than a century probably in a lot of stadiums, especially these really traditional classic old ones, you had bleachers.
Yeah.
And so they didn't even have seat backs. And so people can just there's just too much competition for people's time, and there's too many other entertainment options to not provide the basics like better bathrooms or seat backs or seats that don't make your butt fall asleep or
Yeah.
um, in the case of the Jaguars, the reason they put the roof over it is because they're in Florida and half of their season it's like uh, like oppressively humid and
Yes.
not a nice experience, and so all those basics are like things that have to be dealt with and that are hard to do sometimes when you've got a publicly owned venue because they're not like can't directly be tied to revenue generation. So premium is a big part of all of these because it's helping fund some of the project. So all of them are adding more premium, different types of premium, different levels of premium,
Interesting.
like gateway premium, for younger people that can get into this cycle and then hopefully one day buy more expensive stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to invest in some of this other stuff that needed to be invested in because it didn't like clearly
Yeah.
directly generate revenue.
So with that then, is there also sort of different attitudes to ticketing? Like, away from the kind of, casual ticket or season ticket and that's it? Or are people thinking about more innovative ways to sell ticket packages and so on?
Yeah, for sure. So the term I hear the most is full season equivalents.
Right.
So the season ticket's not dying. I would actually like compare it very similarly to in the US to cable subscribers. Cable is not disappearing, but more people are streaming, and more people like that flexibility. And as older cable subscribers age out, the it'll slowly keep changing. And so I think season tickets are the same way. People really like flexibility, and there's a lot of sports that, especially the NBA, NHL, and MLB, which have the most games, where they're finding lots of success creating full season equivalents. So four people buying quarter seasons or two people buying halves, as opposed to full season tickets. And it's better for the teams. It's maybe it's more work because they got to get more people. They have to sell to more people. But if less of your tickets, if your team and less of your tickets are ending up on the secondary market, out of your control, out of your ecosystem, then you're better in touch with your fans. You know who they are. You keep
Mm.
them in your environment more, and so they're willing to make this trade because it keeps tickets out of the. They call it leakage, which I think
Yeah,
is a
sure.
weird sounding term, but makes sense.
Interesting. Okay, so if you're more flexible on the in stadium fan experience, you can capture possibly more people for a wider digital fan experience, and they're part of the wider fan group, and then that's another opportunity to be monetized there as well, I guess.
Yeah, and they're more likely to go to say if you're an NBA quarter season ticket holder, they're more likely to go to the 10 games as opposed to if they have to buy 41 and they put 35 of them on StubHub and
Yes.
you've lost that connection to the ticket. It's just out there and it's
Uh,
on its own and it's moving around. So that's something they're interested in too is having people use the tickets and giving them less, and making it less of a job to be a season ticket owner.
Interesting. That tallies actually with, obviously we do fan feedback, and season tickets is a thing. Ticketing prices, availability, and so is always a thing. You do see comments around, it's not like it used to be. When I used to go, it was always the same people around me for my season ticket, and now
Yeah.
it's just a different person every time because they
Yeah, yeah.
collect.
Yeah.
So it's kind of you're losing the fan atmosphere because of that. So maybe this kind of quarterly ticket thing could be, an answer to that as well. That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just more stuff to do. One of the teams I have talked to about this was the Brooklyn Nets, who they moved. I think it was 12 or 13 years ago to Brooklyn from New Jersey. They were in northern New Jersey,
Yeah.
and so they're still really creating a fan base in a city that has had the Knicks for ages.
Yeah.
So they're still building a fan base, and so one of the ways they did full season equivalents was they sold a package that was the All-Stars. So you could see games that had All-Star players. So you could see the Lakers
Yeah.
and the Golden State Warriors and the Milwaukee Bucks. They had a second one that was conference rivals, so it was more geographical. So you would see the,
Okay.
um, you know, Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, Boston Celtics, teams that are around that you enjoy rooting against. And then the third package, which surprised them by how well it did, was what we could politely call the crappy games, that like nobody wanted to go to on a Tuesday night
Yeah.
against, teams that were in last place, or just there was no, like, they didn't have a star, there was no geographical connection to them. And those did extremely well, like better than they thought. And part of that was thanks to families, and because they were cheaper.
Yeah.
They were less desirable games. And um, so I think, they didn't have high hopes for that package, but it did really well, in part because, the economy is a little mushy right now. And so, you have the premium demand is there because we live in a world, especially in the US, where the wealth gap is really widening. So the top end is fine, but the bottom end is where you're having some softness. And, I think there's a lot of opportunity with the games that are less desirable to get people involved that might not otherwise be able to afford it.
Yeah. Okay. Really interesting. So you could market to families or people who are going maybe out of town visitors. There's all kinds of like different ways you can sort of appeal to.
Yeah, or like we're playing the team that's in last place in 3 weeks. Let's make it like Peppa Pig night.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
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 So
They're super interesting. So maybe let's talk a little bit about sort of Europe, because obviously we talked a little bit about some of the football teams. I got more knowledge about the UK. So certainly in the Premiership, the soccer in the UK, there's been a lot more foreign money coming in. Some of that is American money. So Liverpool, Birmingham City is a really interesting project at the moment. You mentioned Fulham before.
Wrexham, yeah.
So, what's your sort of view on how things may change in terms of how teams are approaching fan experience? If we're being really harsh, they really don't care about fan experience because maybe it's just all about getting people in. It's all about winning the game.
Mhm.
Whereas I think if you've got the bigger stadiums and the American money and the American thinking about fan experience, things might start to change on that. I just wonder if you could talk about that and what you've seen.
Yeah. I would hope that you could get some mix of the best of both, because there are aspects of English football and European football that I would hope don't get NFLized, you know. Um,
Well, there's only we of course get promoted and relegated, which is
yeah, which is amazing. Yeah, yeah.
unlike the most American sports.
I don't think an owner in any country in any world would start a new league with promotion and relegation involved. I mean, a good example is like one of the nicest stadiums in the US is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they're terrible every year. And it's because they have the solidity of they're not getting relegated.
Yeah.
So they invest in their stadium. So I think what Birmingham is doing is interesting. I saw him speak at Leaders Group at Leaders Week last week, which we're owned by, or we're I don't know what you call us. We're like cousins with Leaders Group, or maybe we might be siblings. I'm not exactly sure, but we are related with them. And he mentioned, I thought like made a very valid point for the making the case for doing something like that in Birmingham. That you have it in London and you have it in Manchester, but nothing in between. And Birmingham being is it the second city, right? Um,
Ooh, see, I live in Manchester, so that's
okay,
that's fun.
it's a very big city.
It's
It's a very big
yeah.
city.
Roughly speaking, Birmingham and Manchester are like roughly the same sort of
Okay,
size.
very big city.
Is a valid point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, having more stuff around venues would be interesting. I think the challenge there is like, for example, the Stamford Bridge challenge. If you take the stadium out of that environment, then do you kind of lose the connection to the place? I mean, you still have teams that are from neighborhoods, which, in the
Yeah.
US is like kind of like just a foreign concept to us. So I think there's like risk there. You do have the possibility, I think, for projects like Wrexham and Fulham, where you do kind of a mega stand, and can kind of keep it where it is by creating a destination type place on a quarter or a half of the stadium. But again, I mean, a lot of stadiums are in such dense urban environments, and there's such like historical obstacles. I know that's like a problem, like in Italy with getting any project to move forward is, you dig in the ground and you find something that derails the project for the next decade.
Interesting.
So, but I think like in terms of fan experience, there's plenty of things that can be done. I think like food and beverage could probably, in some cases, be improved. I mean, maybe, we have in the U.S. You get to the stadium and kind of take the lap, to test out see what all is out there, and you can see all the food options and whatnot. I mean, I know that in some ways is inconceivable in Europe for safety reasons. So
Yeah.
we don't really have the same issue there. But I kind of laugh when American fans go to Europe and are like, "Oh, Tottenham Stadium was amazing, but I couldn't leave the club section."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, there's a reason for that. But uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how much will be changed outside or within. I mean, I think in some cases they're sort of literally and figuratively cramped, or kind of
Yeah.
constrained. I think like Everton would be maybe like the best case scenario. Like that seems to have worked out.
I was going to bring Everton up actually. So for those who don't know, there's two big teams in Liverpool. There's Liverpool FC, and then there's Everton. And both teams until recently had basically neighborhood stadiums. And um, Everton invested an awful lot of money in building a state-of-the-art new stadium, which is amazing, right on the river. But it was an interesting time because obviously it's a massive investment just at the time when Everton were looking quite wobbly about whether they would stay in the Premiership, in the Premier League. So it's worked out okay so
Mhm.
far, but we're still early in the season this year.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so do you think like having the modern stadium in place is that like a prerequisite for someone buying a team?
If I was an American investor, like a billionaire, and had some billionaire friends, and then maybe like a famous pro athlete to be the face of our group, I would be looking at like Sheffield Wednesday or a club that's in like distress, because to me, I would be studying how difficult it would be to do the development. Does the club in the town have a good relationship? What is the like agreement like? How difficult will it be to do it? Um, but I would be looking at a stadium that hadn't been improved yet. I mean, I think, if somebody bought Everton now, they'd be buying on the high end. The Friedkins, kind of interesting timing for buying as the stadium was being built, as the club was potentially, about to get relegated. So,
Yeah.
it was pretty risky investment. But I think like, the Wrexham example is good. They're gonna, do a big stand on one end, and that was a stadium that was had some potential, and the fan base was kind of down, but like now is, I mean, a very regional club. Like they have a big Kent area.
Yeah.
There's what probably the third biggest club in Wales. Newcastle United, I would think would be like, if I was PIF purchasing them a few years back, I think they would have been very appealing because the fan base is massive. The stadium is also massive. It's a bit of a Frankenstein. It's got like multiple, you can see the renovations that have happened, but it's also got a huge empty park next to it that they could build a stadium right next to it and keep the iconic location on the hill. Um, so I think venue is like firmly one of the, or venue possibilities would be firmly one of the things that these American buyers or buyers of wherever they're from would be looking at with especially English clubs, because in a lot of cases there's sort of nowhere to go but up, and if it's not been done yet, then you can control it and sort of
Yeah.
make it in your vision. So
Interesting. So we just actually put a report out on the sort of the build up to the World Cup, and a lot of the research that we got concerns about stadiums, participation, travel, things of this nature, and there's a sort of a danger that the soccer, men's and women's in the States, is kind of it's primed for a really great moment. It could be a great moment, but they might just miss it somehow.
Yeah, the other thing is that, I mean, I think if I'm traveling to the US, it's gonna be a really expensive tournament. I mean, the tickets have been discussed, but it's a huge
Yeah,
footprint for the tournament, and so you may have to cross borders multiple times. Just getting from place to place if you went to multiple games is gonna be very expensive, and so, I mean, I think even in a perfect political climate, it'd be the most expensive to attend World Cup ever. I mean, we're going from Qatar, where you could almost walk to half the stadiums, to this, which is like, I mean, the literally most opposite type of tournament you could possibly have.
yeah. So I mean, it's gonna be a different fan experience in more ways than one. Maybe people just like base themselves out of one city,
Yeah.
do other stuff in between games.
Mhm.
I mean, I do actually remember the last time the World Cup was in the States. I remember the Irish team in particular had a really strong run at that one, which was like good tournament last time, I think.
Mhm.
I guess, but the other thing with, the States also then has the Olympics as well, and that's in LA for those who don't know.
Mhm.
Um, is that having an effect on the sort of outlook at the moment?
I think most eyes right now are pretty firmly on the World Cup. Uh, the Olympics is much more, if you're in California, they're probably paying much more attention to it, but it's a bit more localized, so it's more of California's problem. No, I don't think we've shifted into that mode yet. I mean, really kind of right now in the sports industry, I think most eyes are um, on the World Cup.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So maybe last topic let's talk about is sort of media and sort of private media around teams. So I've just watched the Netflix documentary series on the Dallas Cowboys, which is a fantastic story about how the owner A got his money in the first place, B, had this quite hostile takeover of the Cowboys, and it's just great, really good entertainment. Um, so there's a big trend towards teams having their own media like that. Can you just kind of talk about why they're doing that, what the effects of that are, and that kind of angle? Would be really interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is like the best and the worst of America. He's a very American character, and a really phenomenal storyteller, and deeply comfortable in front of the camera. Like, really enjoys it.
Yeah,
So yeah, I would recommend people watch that if they're not really familiar with the Cowboys. Yeah, so the content strategies for these teams has really shifted to the full year. And so if you separate from like documentaries and stuff, which is, oftentimes teams wanting to control the narrative, a lot of those documentaries are really boring because they control the narrative. That's why at times the Drive to Survive has been pretty good. Or I even thought Sunderland Till I Die was amazing because the ending both seasons was terrible. Like,
yes,
they didn't sugarcoat it, it did not go well either year. So those types of documentaries are pretty rare. And I think teams really like to control the narrative, but they are investing so much more in year-round content because you have that competition for entertainment. You really have to keep your hooks in people the entire year. You can't really afford an off season and to lose people because there's just it's like you have to win your fan, not all of them, but it's like you have to win a portion of your fans back, like, every year. And so, with social media and team apps and membership programs and things where you can provide exclusive content and stuff like that. I'm seeing a lot of investment in like in studios and team studios and things like that. A lot of times they'll be at the practice facility so they can catch the players coming off a practice field and do a podcast with them or whatever. And so they're folding it into like players into like part of their experience. In the same way that you would get a massage or eat.
yeah,
You got to do a video today because it's your turn. So, I mean, you could literally do a whole nother hour talking about this, but it's sports teams used to be teams. They used to be players and coaches and a manager, and they're just much, 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 much broader than that now. And part of that is media. People would say, like 10 years ago, "Well, sports teams are media companies now." Well, they're not just media companies. They are real estate companies. They're just like these multi-platform things, like more like an Amazon or a Walmart
Yeah.
or Netflix. That's just really trying to diversify their business and connect with you in literally any way they can throughout the year, not just for whatever time of
Right.
year their season is. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I think on that, I mean, we could do a whole other episode on Drive to Survive, Formula One in the States, things like that. But we, unfortunately, are running out of time. That, however, has been a fantastic hour, Bret. Thank you so much for coming on. Can you just kind of, if people want to connect with you or learn more about SBJ, how do they do that?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn quite a bit, more than I would have ever imagined I would be in my whole life. It's not necessarily a place I desire to be, but it's where my readers are, so I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Um, and Sports Business Journal is as well. We're also on like Instagram, TikTok, and then sportsbusinessjournal.com. So yeah, check us out, because if you're trying to keep up with what's going on with North American sports business, I mean, there is no better resource.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm Ben Hookway. I'm the CEO of Relative Insight. If you want to hear about Relative Insight and what we're doing in fan experience, we're at relativeinsight.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Again, I spend a lot of my hours on LinkedIn these days. I'm told to do that anyway. So I'm Ben Hookway. Bret's been fantastic. Thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Okay.